Okay, so I wanted to respond to this comment. Some of the things she was talking about here, um, I thought were interesting as far as Cynthia G. A major thing that bothered me was the whole aborting thing, and some of the things that Cynthia G says I don't agree with, but what I was trying to talk about in this video was specifically talking about the whole BWE sector should have different sectors, right? So there's divested women who are not into black men, right? Then there's black women who are into black men. That's what I was more so talking about, that there needs to be a space for the black women who like black men only, and how they navigate finding the right man for them and so forth. I think that, the whole thing about abortion or whatever, I'm very much against in all cases. I've always been pro life. Um, that's just how it is. And I wouldn't support anyone saying, to abort black children. I also don't even think, some of the things that she said on the basis of like black men's interests in other races and things like that. I don't think it should be condemned, so to speak, and I don't think that they deserve to have their lives ended because they prefer another race. See, a major thing with me is this: with black men and black women who interracially date, interracially marry, and so forth, people who have a preference outside of their race, I relate to that honestly because, my own preference. So I mean, like, some of the issues that some of these women have with black men who date outside of their race, marry outside of their race, are attracted to people outside of their race. I mean, I understand why they don't, why they have an issue with this. But you have to understand, from my perspective, I can't have a problem with it personally because what they do is what I do, what I prefer, and what I have interest in, just like they have interest in. You get me? So my perspective is very similar to theirs, but I understand for them, does it behoove them to support people to prefer other than themselves when that's their target? It doesn't benefit them. It benefits me, like I talked about in the previous video on sexual harassment and things like that. Yes, it benefits me, but for them, it doesn't benefit them because they want black men. So, I mean, like, in that idea, to me, I'm like, well, is it really wrong that they have some ideas where they are not very favorable to the idea of them not being preferred by black men sometimes, and having a negative idea on that? To me, I think there's enough for everybody. So, I mean, like, you don't have to be mad at some people who are attracted to other races. You know what I mean? There's could be some that are attracted to black women, but I understand also that the black men who are into black women, from what I've seen on my page, they seem like that's a doozy to deal with, honestly. Um, the self hate that they talk about, the self deprecation they talk about, I mean, having to try and find someone that is your better half among those people seems pretty rough, honestly. And that's more of what I was saying. It makes sense why they would have a space to speak about their issues. Now, that is trauma bonding, right? That's what people say is trauma bonding. But I think more so solutions are a better answer to their problems than just trauma bonding, basically. Um, but I understand why they're getting their frustrations out now a little bit more, even though honestly, personally, I don't really personally feel affected by it because it's like, for me, it's not a personal issue. That's not one of my things, that I'm concerned about, because I'm not attracted to those people. Now, what you were saying about, trying to find men that were not dusty or of a lower class, um, and things of that nature, you know, that's what I'm trying to say here is trying to do better and trying to find a solution, would be the best answer to their situation. But I do think there is a niche and a need for their sector for those type of people. Not for me personally, but there is a niche for other people. But I just think it needs to be a little bit more constructive, you know? And it's not very constructive when she has people like Nyla who live that lifestyle of having a crackhead as a husband, being a prostitute herself, and a lot of dysfunctional people. When you have a lot of dysfunctional people, they're not going to come up with solutions because they are living the problem, you know. So to me, that's what I'm saying. I think it needs she needs to have a sense of having more solutions and less complaints and less trauma bonding, basically, and more just dealing with the problem and actually fixing how you choose your men. So that's all I was saying there. Now, other things, this part I think you're talking about um supposed race loyal situations or whatever. That's, I think, why you guys are saying you felt betrayed or whatever by black men preferring other races, because you preferred other races but you chose black men. um to me, that's not really black men's fault though, because I mean, like, that's your choice, right? Now, at the same time, I must say that it does seem like some black men get all in their feelings about this type of stuff, but I always thought it was people outside of families, right? I don't know. I come from one of those families that don't give a darn about things like that. People do that all the time, nobody really cares. But, I mean, outside of the race, I always thought that was just because, like, black men, have an interest in you. They'll be in their feelings because they'll realize that you're not their type or whatever. But if you're one who's not attracted to black men anyway, ever, they're gonna realize that anyway, and they're gonna get in their feelings anyway. So, I mean, to me, it's kind of like, I don't really see how that's black men's fault, for not being true to one's attraction. If you're not attracted to black men and you chose black men anyway, that's not really black men's fault. If you preferred white men more than black men and you chose black men anyway, that's not their fault. I mean, that was your choice. And I think a lot of this has to do with choice, choosing the man that's best for you, personally, regardless of race. I mean, whichever race you're attracted to, if you're attracted to all races, it should be the person who's best for you in general, outside of race. And I think this part kind of goes into like more of the hood culture, the hip hop culture, the gang culture, I guess, rap culture, or whatever. Not all black people come from that type of background. So I guess to some of you, I've heard this before, um, kind of think that I guess those type of men are an example of masculinity or something. I've always thought it was an example of femininity at its finest. But I do see what you're saying there, that some people, I think when you're saying the suburbs, I think you mean the people who have come from those backgrounds and then moved into the suburbs more so. people who aren't naturally like that, they don't come from families like that, and they were taught to actually be very fearful of such individuals. Um, that's not a sign of masculinity to us. Usually, it's just more so a sign of fear, possibly losing your life, getting robbed, just things like that. Not really about a sign of masculinity. It seems like a sign of danger to me, a sign of animalistic behavior. And that's not specific to black men either. That's specific to anyone within that subculture, really, in my perspective. But I kind of just think, the whole idea, what you're saying about loyalty and things of that nature, to me, I don't know that, and I'm not familiar with it. Again, like I said, I'm not in these people's shoes. I didn't grow up in an environment like that, So, to me, it's just kind of like, I don't really see the struggle, but it does seem, I kind of see at least the mentality of some of these people, not regarding what you're talking about with the whole rap culture and all that, but like some of the mentality of the people talking about their own selves as being black people, and how that must be a struggle. But to me, I just kind of like think, if there is a struggle for these people, and it seems like it is, there should be maybe a space or a sector for them. And they do have a niche that is legitimate for black women who are into black men. I just think less anger and more solutions, because solutions actually make people happier. While just anger, and complaining about black men isn't going to actually make you happy, because you're still stuck with the problems that you were complaining about, because you are saying you are stuck with black men, right? So you don't even have any other options. So to me, I mean, like, if you're stuck with these type of black men, try to find another type of black men that actually make you happy. So that's kind of like how I see it, kind of like, I just don't really see caring, and I don't see talking about the problems as the main focus, really. I think the better focus would be solutions for these people. But I do see that they do have a problem, maybe, and that maybe there's a space in a sector for them. I never thought it was. I just thought that they were just complaining all that time. And, many of the time it seemed like, the problem is them. And I do think that they put in they contribute to their own problem.